The Utah legislature is set to make sweeping changes to a new law passed by the people. So much for rule by consent. What's in the news with stories on hemp legalization, cannabis convictions expunged, cop gets away with murder, peace is closer in the Koreas, cop recruitment way down, and civil asset forfeiture theft. Finally, in Ask Me Anything, where I answer questions on arbitrary laws, multiverse theory, and ending the federal government, or at least part of it. This episode is brought to you by ZenCash, now known as Horizen, a cryptocurrency that infuses privacy, anonymity, and security done right. Also brought to you by SmartCash, an easy-to-use, fast, and secure cryptocurrency that supports everyday use for everyday transactions.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the state that was originally settled for profitable fishing, with the first settlement built near the mouth of the Piscataqua River, with stone storehouses, fish drying racks, and systems of effective fish-catching nets. This is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at The Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 115, No Rule of the People Allowed. And it's Tuesday, December 11th, 2018, when there have already been more than 937 people killed by police this year, and the United States debt clock shows us at more than $21,860,100,000,000 in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. Rule of consent, right? Rule of the people, right? I mean, hell, even the state of Arkansas has that as their state motto, Regnat Populus, Latin for the people rule. Well, we all know that is complete and utter horseshit. However, to see it on such rich display as you're going to see here is pretty rare, even for our statist, statolatry society. I'm talking about, of course, the nonsense coming out of Utah. Now, I had several of my loyal listeners and supporters bring this one up to me, so I knew I had to tear into this one. Lawmakers in Utah passed sweeping changes Monday to a voter-approved medical marijuana ballot measure under a planned compromise that secured the support of the influential Mormon Church, but sparked a backlash from pot advocates. The changes brought about this bill ban many marijuana edibles, prevent people from growing their own marijuana if they live far from a dispensary, and narrow the list of eligible medical conditions for which the drug can be obtained. Smoking marijuana wasn't allowed in the original ballot measure, and it won't be under the new version either. Democrats argued that the ballot measure's passage with 53% of the vote showed people wanted it as written, and they proposed leaving the original language intact. Republicans overwhelmingly voted down that idea. Opponents say the changes create major obstacles to patients who want to get the drug and cut the number of locations where it could even be available. Opponents plan to sue to block the compromise, said Christine Stinquist of the group Together for Responsible Use in Cannabis Education, also known as TRUCE. She and other medical marijuana advocates went to voters after years of trying unsuccessfully to persuade conservative legislators to pass the bill, and the groups cleared a high bar to win a spot on the ballot. And here's the crux of the issue. Ohio state law allows the legislature to change the language of laws passed directly by the voters, in direct contravention of rule by the people. Republican representative, and I've got to use that term very loosely to this asshat who is clearly not representing the people's will, Merrill Nelson said, "We have the right to override what the people do by initiative." In other words, they don't give two shits what the people want or what they vote for going through the legal process to have laws passed. They will just do whatever the fuck they want anyway. Opponents of the plan criticized the compromise negotiations held largely out of the public eye, imagine that, and said they were an example of the Mormon Church exerting its influence on public policy. Together for Responsible Use in Cannabis Education, TRUCE, attorney Rocky Anderson said, "Anything that defeats the right of the people to pass their own legislation under our Constitution should be declared unconstitutional. Otherwise, it's totally illusory." This guy gets it, for sure. TRUCE is currently suing the state for these shenanigans. Paul Castle, a former federal judge and a law professor at the University of Utah's S.J. Quinney College of Law, said he believed legal actions are long shots. He said, "They don't have a very good case under current law. While the voters have a right to enact a law, the legislature has the right to change it." Who gave them that right? I mean, is that a right that the people have in the first place in order to give that right to someone else? I mean, don't you have to have something yourself before you can give it away? Of course not. It's a made-up right, as are most legislature-derived laws. Truces Anderson said, "If there is any meaning in our Constitution as to the people's right through direct democracy to pass initiatives and hence legislation, it's got to mean way more than the bill is there one day and defeated by the legislature 2 days later." Well, Anderson, I've got news for you. Lysander Spooner spoke to exactly this sort of shit more than a century and a half ago when he excoriated the U.S. Constitution by saying it was unfit to exist. Clearly, the Utah Constitution suffers from the exact same issues, as, I suspect, does the Constitution of all 50 states in the Union. Don't kid yourself, folks. There is no rule of the people. The people, us, are only ruled by the rulers. The entire voting scam is nothing more than window dressing. If everyone stopped voting tomorrow, the window dressing would fall, and the man behind the curtain, in this case the true nature of our subjugation, would present itself. The government would not stop governing. They would appoint their own rulers over us, and business would continue as usual. If voting actually made a difference, there is no way in hell they would ever allow us to vote. This case in Utah is just further evidence that we are slaves. Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
It's time to shake up your podcast feed, folks, by subscribing to Lions of Liberty, the only libertarian variety show out there. Spend Mondays with me, Mark Claire, as I feature in-depth interviews with great names in the libertarian community and fun roundtable discussions.
Electric Liberty Land with me, Brian McWilliams, every Wednesday, your weekly dose of comedy, culture, and liberty.
And Felony Fridays with me, John Odermatt, where I expose injustice in the broken criminal justice system.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and at lionsofliberty.com.
This is Chris Spangle, and I am the host of We Are Libertarians, which you can find in iTunes, Google Play, or at wearelibertarians.com. We are a podcast that brings you all of the irreverence that modern politics deserves by examining current events from a libertarian perspective. So please, check us out at wearelibertarians.com.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In common sense news, the U.S. Congress has finally come to an agreement on proposed legislation that would make it legal to grow hemp in the U.S. for the first time in almost a century. Although derived from the same plant, hemp is a variety that has less than 0.3% of THC, the ingredient that provides the high in regular marijuana. Hemp can be used in fuel, food, bracelets, and many other purposes. Derivatives are used in everything from textiles to medicines. The proposed legislation acknowledges officially, finally, the differences between the two. John Hudak, a senior fellow at Brookings Institute, said that the legislation was important and that it shows a recognition of CBD and its lack of potential harm or risk. While there are likely to be more CBD products now, as far as growing hemp is concerned, Hudak said growers will still need to be licensed, of course, and there will be federal and state restrictions on hemp products, of course. It's not going to be a free-for-all, as some people imagine, but it should be. Both the House and Senate need to officially vote on the new law. This is expected to happen before the end of the year. The final 2018 Farm Bill is expected to be voted on even as early as next week. The lion's share of the roughly $800 million U.S. hemp market today is for products that include the non-psychoactive compound CBD. Products infused with CBD are used for a wide range of medical conditions, ranging from epilepsy and multiple sclerosis to arthritis and chronic pain. Laws involving CBD products differ in each state. But let's be honest, hemp should never have been made illegal in the first place, so it's good to see this likely passing soon. The most important aspect of this, I believe, is that CBD will finally be available for clinical testing to see what it can actually accomplish for many sick people. I know many people claim that CBD can cure any number of ills, so finally seeing proof of these claims will be interesting to watch. In more cannabis news, the city of Denver, Colorado will begin helping people expunge their criminal records and include low-level cannabis crimes. Mayor Michael Hancock has ordered a citywide effort to remove low-level marijuana convictions from residents' records. Mayor Hancock said in a news release, "For too long, the lives of low-income residents and those living in our communities of color have been negatively affected by low-level marijuana convictions. This is an injustice that needs to be corrected, and we're going to provide a pathway to move on from an era of marijuana prohibition that has impacted the lives of thousands of people. People already can try to expunge records on their own, but the city now will proactively help them," said Teresa Marchetta, Hancock's spokeswoman. The city's effort won't help those convicted in state court, though. Last week, the Boulder County District Attorney's Office announced that it would also vacate and seal thousands of marijuana possession convictions. Denver officials haven't said whether they will take a single action to clear thousands of cases or whether they might help people clear their records individually. My question is, why the hell has this been taking so long? Cannabis was legalized in Colorado in 2012, for Christ's sakes. Why this is taking 6 years is just ridiculous. I am pleased to see it's happening, though, at least in some places. Once it happens in a few, it's going to start taking off elsewhere as well. Good for Denver. ZenCash has changed their name to Horizen to better represent their transition from a pure cryptocurrency to a pioneering platform that protects consumer data. They're focusing more on the wider vision of what ZenCash was all about. The new name, Horizen, reinforces that the project is forward-thinking and visionary and will broaden the horizons of what the community can accomplish in the world using the platform. Not only is it one of the best privacy-oriented cryptocurrencies with zero-knowledge technology built into it, but they also have private chat over their network. And soon, Horizen will include the ability to publish information and go anywhere on the web, all with complete privacy. They are working toward the day when anyone will be able to build privacy-based applications on the Horizen platform and generate income from them. This will allow Horizen to bring thousands of real-life services to the community. Services that provide freedom, utility, and privacy. The unique spelling of Horizen is a nod to their heritage and recognizes that they remain committed to the vision that their project was built upon. Their coin and ticker symbol remains Zen. So ZenCash is now Horizen, and Horizen is bringing privacy to life. You can learn more at horizen.global. That's HORIZEN.global. In We Investigated Ourselves news, on Monday, the 17th Judicial District's Attorney's Office ruled that it will not pursue charges against an Aurora police officer for the shooting death of a man who was only protecting his family. Richard Gary Black was shot and killed in July as an intruder attacked his family in their home near Iola Street and Montview Boulevard. The DA's office says, "The evidence does not support the filing of any criminal charges against Officer Limbaugh for the shooting death of Mr. Richard Gary Black." Black was protecting his family from a man, Dejon Harper, who broke into the family's home. Harper's mother had called 911 and told them that he was on some kind of a drug or something. Harper was reportedly naked when he kicked down Black's door and grabbed the man's 11-year-old grandson and tried to strangle and drown him in the bathroom. Black then shot and killed Harper, before being shot and killed himself by cops. Harper has an extensive and violent background. Black, on the other hand, did nothing but try to protect his family. The officer shot Black after multiple commands to drop his weapon while he walked back into his living room. Days after the shooting, Aurora Police Chief Nick Metz said that it's possible Black had a hearing impairment and did not hear the officer's commands. Black was a Vietnam War veteran and a winner of the Bronze Star. He's a retired IRS agent and described by neighbors as a family man. So a man protects his family by killing a drugged-up man who was trying to drown his grandson, and in return he gets murdered in his own home by those who are supposedly there to serve and protect. I guess they served and protected the shit out of Black and his family. And of course, no charges for the officer. In some peace news, a South Korean train rolled across the heavily militarized frontier into North Korea for the first time in a decade on Friday, as Seoul pushed ahead with a plan to reunite the two railway networks despite heavy UN sanctions. The train pulled 6 cars carrying dozens of South Korean officials and experts who will undertake an 18-day, 750-mile survey of railway tracks in the north. The journey required special permission from the United Nations to carry equipment and fuel into the north despite the sanctions regime. Seoul plans to hold a groundbreaking ceremony before the end of the year on a plan to establish road and rail links between the two Koreas, first agreed upon by the country's 2 leaders at a summit in April. But the project can't go beyond symbolic gestures to become a reality unless sanctions are lifted. Nevertheless, with talks between the U.S. and North Korea stalling, the government in Seoul is keen to show progress in its own peace process with Pyongyang. Unification Minister Cho Myong-yeon said at a ceremony in Dorasan Station near the border, "The Inter-Korean Railway Connection Project is intended to overcome division and open a new future for the Korean Peninsula. Through the one connected railway, the South and the North will prosper together, and the ground for peace on the Korean Peninsula will be consolidated. The train crossing the Korean Peninsula will carry peace and prosperity to Northeast Asia and the world." And here again, we have evidence that North and South Korea are on the precipice of peace for the first time in decades. And the limiting factor is, of course, sanctions in place by countries that have no business being involved in the first fucking place. As usual, the U.S. should just get its big fat fucking nose out of the business of the Korean people and let them work this out. Looks to me like they are doing a hell of a better job than the U.S. ever has. SmartCash is an easy-to-use, fast, and secure cryptocurrency that supports everyday use for everyday transactions. SmartCash is focused on getting the currency back into cryptocurrency, and their vision is to replace centralized fiat currencies in day-to-day life. Too many cryptos talk about being used as a currency, but they are all focused on something else and leave user experience for both merchant and customer by the wayside. SmartCash is focused on being used for business payments and POS through such features like their Instant Pay, which allows for trusted transactions in a second, powered and secured by their 20,000 user-run smart nodes. SmartCash also has a Smart Hive proposal system that is funded by the blockchain, where any user can put forth a project proposal to expand the community, ecosystem, or technology. Holding one smart equals one vote, so all users can participate in voting without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to run a full node. The people working on SmartCash are broken up into 6 different Smart Hive structuring teams with dedicated team members that are completely funded by the blockchain. There is no CEO, no foundation, no centralized leadership, and there is no need for outside investors to come in and compromise any deals. Check out SmartCash today at thelavaflow.com/smart to find out how they are putting the cash into SmartCash and the currency into cryptocurrency. I believe this is truly a ground floor opportunity to get in on a rising tide. Get a wallet and find an exchange to purchase SmartCash at thelavaflow.com/smart. In more peace news, nationwide, interest in becoming a police officer is down significantly, with job applications plummeting at most U.S. police departments. In Nashville, job applications dropped from 4,700 in 2010 to 1,900 last year. In Seattle, applications have declined by nearly 50% in a department where the starting salary is $79,000. Even the FBI had a sharp drop from 21,000 applications per year to 13,000 last year, before a new marketing campaign brought an upswing. And retaining officers once they've joined is getting harder too. In a perf study of nearly 400 police departments, 29% of those who left their police job voluntarily had been on the force less than a year, and an additional 40% had been on the job less than 5 years. At a perf gathering in Washington on Tuesday of police chiefs and commanders from across the country, many attributed their declining numbers to a diminished perception of police in the years after the shooting and unrest in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014, and an increase in public and media scrutiny made possible by technology and social media. In other words, the cockroaches have a much bigger flashlight on them today than ever before, so hiding their bad actions is much tougher. Nearly 66% of the nearly 400 police departments surveyed said their number of applicants has decreased. Good. Look, these constant reports of bad actors and bad apples, not to mention the growing negative perception of what cops are doing to us, is finally having a major impact. Keep up the good work of spreading far and wide stories of those asshat cops doing asshat things. You are truly doing Lord Rothbard's work every time you spread another story of police abuse. In government theft news, in oral examination, Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer got the Indiana Solicitor General to admit that he believes it is constitutional for the police to seize someone's car for driving just 5 miles per hour over the speed limit. I shit you not. Yes, civil asset forfeiture has become such a boon for state law enforcement that its proponents are admitting to the U.S. Supreme Court that the application of the policy is nearly without limits. As is the case with the law in many states of the Union, Indiana authorities may seize the suspect's property regardless of the ultimate outcome of the case against the accused. In the case being considered by the Supreme Court, a man's property was seized and his life was shattered by Indiana law enforcement's use of civil asset forfeiture against him. Tyson Timms, who bought his Land Rover with proceeds from a life insurance payout that he received after his father's death, was busted selling heroin to undercover cops. His car was seized. After pleading guilty to one of the drug charges, Timms began the process of securing the return of his car. He had no idea how long a process that would be and how widespread such abuses are in the rest of the country as well. This case made it all the way to the Supreme Court, where, as mentioned earlier, Justice Breyer got Indiana Solicitor General Thomas Fisher to admit before the Supreme Court itself that he believes the state could have seized Tim's vehicle even if all he was doing was driving 5 miles per hour over the speed limit. Now, normally I wouldn't do this, but I think this is important, so I want to read you the text from this exchange. Justice Breyer said, "Well, in your view, an in rem civil forfeiture is not an excessive fine, is that right?" Indiana Solicitor General Fisher said, "Yes, that is true." Breyer, "So what is to happen if a state needing revenue says anyone who speeds has to forfeit the Bugatti, Mercedes, or a special Ferrari, or even a jalopy?" Fisher, There is no excessive fines issue there. What I will say and what I think is important to remember is that there is a constitutional limit, which is the proof of instrumentality, the need to prove nexus. Breyer, "This isn't a problem because it was the Bugatti in which he was speeding." Fisher, right. Breyer, so there is all the nexus. Fisher, historically. Breyer, "Now I just wonder, what is it? What is it? Is that just permissible under the Constitution?" Fisher, "To forfeit the Bugatti for speeding?" Breyer, "Yeah, and by the way, it was only 5 miles an hour." Fisher, "Yeah." Breyer, "Above the speed limit." Fisher, "Well, the answer is yes, and I would call your attention to the—" Breyer cuts him off and says, "Is it yes?" Fisher, "Yes, it's forfeitable." Breyer, "It is forfeitable?" Fisher, "Yeah, the Louisa Barber case, one person over the passenger limit and the entire ship is forfeit. That is history, shows us in rem forfeiture." Breyer, "So if the airplane is speeding?" Fisher, "Well, in rem forfeitures have always been with us and they have always been harsh." Wow. The statism is strong with this one. I mean, to think that we can just have property stolen with us for the dastardly act of going 5 miles per hour over the speed limit. Fuck this guy in the neck with a speeding Bugatti. Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support.
Are those dry, boring, run-of-the-mill political talk shows putting you to sleep on your commute or at work? Are you ready for some fun?
Look no further. Blast Off with Johnny Rocket is a Seattle-based podcast expressing viewpoints of free markets, voluntary exchange, badass music, wicked banner, and of course, drinking.
The Blast-Off doesn't shy from the truth, but always brings the party.
Let's rock and roll, Raylene.
Bring it on, Johnny.
You can check us out at thelaunchpadmedia.com/blastoff.
Again, that's thelaunchpadmedia.com/blastoff.
Launchpad Media. Always launching ideas in your direction.
Ask me anything. Roger will answer your questions about, well, anything. Do you have a question for Roger? Email ama@thelavaflow.com or add your question to the latest AMA thread in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group.
You know, I had such a good time doing the Ask Me Anything last week that I wanted to do it again this week. And since I have several questions still on the queue, it's a perfect time to do so. Big-time supporter of my show, Ryan P., had a really great question that I wanted to touch on. He says, a conservative police chief for a small town in upstate Washington, Chief Lauren Cupp of Republic, Washington, recently said that his department will refuse to enforce any provisions in the state's recently passed Orwellian Initiative 1639 gun control law, which defines practically any semi-auto rifle as an evil assault weapon and imposes further background checks, age limits, waiting periods, and storage requirements specifically to these types of guns. On the flip side, left-leaning state, county, and city governments have for years been declaring themselves sanctuaries, where some or all immigration laws are simply arbitrarily not enforced. How do you feel about governments just arbitrarily deciding which laws to enforce and not enforce? Doesn't it show the arbitrary nature of our justice system? And he put that in quotes, by the way, I love that. That a police chief or politician can arbitrarily decide to enforce or not to enforce laws they simply don't like. But any individual making the same decision for themselves would quickly be thrown in a cage and have their life destroyed. You know, Ryan, I support police departments, district attorneys, judges, whatever, making these sorts of decisions for the same reason that I support jury nullification. Mainly because it reduces the violence used against the average person. But even more than that, any time something like this happens, it, as you pointed out, shows just completely how arbitrary these laws truly are. It further shows that by not having these laws in some areas, society as we know it does not crumble away and chaos does not reign. So it shows the complete and utter uselessness of most laws. It's almost like a control set that you would see in a scientific test or a medical drug test of some sort. Our current version of the law in this country and all of the states is just that, completely arbitrary, and nothing more than more ways for them to rule over us. It is truly an us versus them situation, make no mistake about it. Common law is far superior to our current legislative or statutory law by far. And common law run by the people is far superior than common law run by the government. Thanks so much for the question, Ryan. I appreciate it. Supporter of the show, Darryl W. Perry, author and host of FPP Radio News and Free Talk Live, always has really interesting questions, usually a little bit quirky, though, and this time is no different. He asks, do you believe in the multiverse theory? Is there a multiverse where you vote? Is there a multiverse where there is no state? The answer to number one is certainly yes. And even further than that, I believe in the infinite multiverse theory as opposed to the more boring and mundane finite multiverse theory. So it naturally follows that if I believe in the infinite multiverse theory, then questions number 2 and 3 must be a yes as well. Thanks Spooner that I live in the multiverse where I stay home and wash my hair instead of voting. But damn it, I want to live in the multiverse where there is no state. Sadly, though, we will likely never know if the multiverse theory is accurate, as it is all but impossible to test for such things scientifically. But we can still hope. And finally, for this week, patron Mark Clare, Emmy Award winner and host of Lions of Liberty, asks, if you could end one federal department with a tweak of your beard, what would it be and why? Mark, damn you, limiting me to only one, that is tough. If I had that power in my beard, I would use it to destroy the Department of Education, hands down. That propaganda machine ensures the servitude, complicity, and complacency of the ruled. Without that propaganda machine, I believe we would see a complete paradigm shift in a generation or less. This is why I rant about homeschooling so much. I honestly believe it to be one of, if not the quickest way to achieving the free society we all desire. Get your kids out of government indoctrination centers, and we will begin seeing massive changes in the right direction for liberty. I am fully convinced of that. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite teleprompter, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on the show, go to thelavaflow.com/115. I have a new supporter this week. Anthony R. began a $1 per episode support of the show using Patreon. Thank you so much, Anthony. You rock. Thanks to Anthony and all of my awesome supporters, I am at $293.50 per episode, or 58.7% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Thank you for all of your support, guys, really. Remember, when I hit this next goal, I'll be upping the content I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you. So add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting today. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon or Bitcoin through Coinbase. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. I don't have any new Apple Podcast reviews this week for the second week in a row, but if you have a minute and you want to hear your review read right here on the show, please go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it. Thank you to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.